Good morning. I've played various card games for the past 9 years, 3 of which I'd consider standard card games that I've tried to get into at varying degrees. When working on the Clash Royale video, I realized that 2 of my arguments relied on 2 baseline assumptions about my relationship to card games. I wanted to go over those assumptions, but in a broad sense, that really gets at the heart of why I personally enjoy card games. The 2 underlying unspoken premises in that video were essentially that card games are inherently interesting, and I don't care what the meta is. With the second one having an asterisk, we'll get to it. These 2 premises are really just consequences of a much deeper set of appreciations and opinions I have on what card gaming means to me. So that's really the goal of the video, to talk about why I've played card games for the last 9 years and continue to do so. Quick disclaimer, when I say card game, I essentially mean CCG. A lot of this will be transferable to non-CCG card games, like deck building roguelikes or card games like Compile, but I mean CCG. And I know variants like LCG and TCG get thrown around, but whatever genre is the LOR, Magic, Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh, Netrunner, Riftbound genre, I'm talking about that one. I have a goal with this video to try and keep this as snappy as I can, as I find I'm often inclined to try and cover everything possible at the cost of missing the core. However, we're going to be talking in the abstract a lot here, and I'll be going over it rather quickly, especially at the start, so sorry in advance if this ends up being impossible to follow. Part 1, what do I get out of card games? During my LOR times, I met a wise man who I'll be referring to as Jans. Jans once said, what we, Jans and I, enjoy about card games is that there's an arbitrary rule set we're developing a mastery of. This is still essentially true, although we'll break down different components of this. The basis of this is that card games have an insanely large web of variables, data points, and relationships between these data points. Like in a single match of a card game, there's so much going on at the most basic of levels. The cards in each player's decks, the hand states, the board state, the order to play cards or take actions, the planning for each future hand and board state, the unknown information, the game plans each deck has. And that's just within a match. Outside of a match, you're planning and thinking about all of those when deck building into every deck you could be seeing. This is an unbelievable amount of relationships. So, to be able to make sense of all those elements, we, as humans, thinkers, or players need to create abstract concepts to give ourselves any way to deal with this data. Concepts like beatdown, tempo, control, mid-range, pressure, deck building theories, mulligan theories. We invent these words and concepts to make sense of these complexities. This is the same for non-card games too, of course. The domain of linguistics isn't like natural, written into the world. It's a broad system we made that has abstract concepts like morphemes and sentence structures so that we can make sense of what's going on. These concepts, with the strategic mindsets that arise from these concepts, the interplay, the sheer breadth and depth of it all, leads to, in essence, what I love about card games. This is abstract, and this video is mostly going to be talking in the abstract, but to give some grounded element, let's quickly consider spell mana. LOI had a mechanic that, at the end of your turn, non-spent mana, up to 3, would be converted into spell mana. Mana depletes at the end of every turn, except spell mana, which stays around, and can be used exclusively for spells. Spells can also use regular mana as well, by the way. This has a wide range of level 1 ramifications. Not playing units on early turns isn't particularly punishing, as it allows you to play costly spells earlier. Board clears can be costed in such a way that a 4-cost board clear can be played on turn 3 against aggressive boards. Combo decks can, if they play the cards right, save mana for spells so that on their combo turn, they can protect their important unit with mana they saved in previous turns. Decisions as they relate to tempo are really quite unique since you can float mana between turns. This is just one mechanic LOI has, and by having this mechanic, there's a ton of level 1 interesting elements that arise from it. And those elements too have consequences for deck building and playing around and other conceptualizations up in level 2, and so forth in level 3, and so on. And there are other mechanics in LOR, and all card games have a ton of mechanics that all, in essence, create these really interesting, complicated consequences that are so engaging to think about. So that's really the core of the video. Mechanics lead to deep, interesting interactions with knock-on effects to such a magnitude that they're interesting. Being able to talk about, understand, work through, logic through, apply all of these over and over to become really tuned to it is fascinating to me. Getting masterful at a craft is an incredibly rewarding experience, but for me, the mastery that comes from card games is one of the best. Put as simply as possible, card games have immense complexity, which is enriching to master. But there's many other related things I need to talk about here, because this statement on its own is only really meaningful when there's a holistic sense to grasp about my relationship to card games. I'm going to phrase these extra bits as questions you might have. Question 1, is that all? Is that all you like about card games? No, I think there's something about art and the experience as well as the social aspect. Those definitely add a lot to the card game experience. Like, I love the art in Legends of Runeterra. I love the people I've met in PvZH, LOR, and Netrunner. In addition, there are lots of reasons I might not pick up a game. As we'll get to, I think mechanics is not one of them, but on screen are a couple of salient reasons. Question 2, why CCGs? Doesn't this apply to any strategic game? I think this is a really interesting question. Thanks, me. I think there are really 4 things in the sort of love of playing and thinking about the game part of this belief I have. As I mentioned, 1 is mastery and 2 is strategy. The existence of all these variables leading to needing deep strategy is engaging, and working through it to a level of deep mastery is engaging. Look, I'm going to be saying engaging a lot. This video is about what engages me about card games. Those 2 things I've sort of tried to allude to, but these are both possible in board games, speedrunning, most competitive crafts are like this. Even things like architecture or engineering are like this. I think to an extent this is why many software engineers also like card games, but that's going on a tangent. So those 2 could apply to a lot. So here are 2 that are specific to the CCG. 3 is the multitudinous nature of cards. I think there is something deeply engaging to me that arises from having a bunch of cards dictate how you play, that legal actions are determined by such a varied set of options. Card games will often be giving players hundreds, several hundreds, thousands of cards they could theoretically include in their deck. In matches, they could be playing against a large variety of different ideas. Once grander concepts start getting ingrained, be they metas or histories about how cards typically fare into one another, how decks are refined, and for what purpose, there becomes so much beauty in this vast world of concepts and connections. Refining decks, understanding a meta, seeing cards in their value on their own and in the value that they have in a context of a deck, meta, hand state, and so forth, it's endlessly engaging. I think the multitudinous nature of card games, compared to, say, chess, where there's only 6 legal cards someone could have, is an extremely important aspect to my love of card games. My Red Gwen deck is going to look different to your Red Gwen deck, because our beliefs on the nature of the game, how the game works at an abstract level, or an instinctual level, or something entirely different, differs. Your choice to play Kaisar is a choice that says so much about the person you are, the way you see the game, the way we're about to engage in the match, to explore both of our separate understandings of the game in front of us. That's fascinating to me, every time. 4 is, I don't really have a single phrase for it, but essentially the drawing/volatility/opponent aspect of it. By drawing, I don't mean like the stereotypical card gamer that draw 2 cards excites me something crazy. I'm ambivalent to draw 2 cards. What I mean is the sort of sense that, 1, you won't, unless the deck is built for it, see every card in your deck. So you're playing around a mix of what you have in hand, what you could draw, what the decks are trying to do, and how that changes based on hand state, mind state, and so many other interesting variables. And 2, that the opponent is in the same position, where they're not drawing their whole deck either. Plus, the enemy gamer also has beliefs and perspectives and variability and a ton of the exact same engaging stimulus that you can and have to consider. This volatility is extremely engaging to me, not because of the chance that someone instantly flops over and loses because they drew 5-10 mana cards on turn 1 while you drew a perfect curve, but because you're always playing around the odds and uncertainties and chances, both within the context of a game, but also all of these matter for like the context of a breadth of 10 games. This is not necessarily the case in board games, where information might be entirely face up, or there might be a stronger upper limit to the potential variability in what card someone might choose to bring to the table. So these last 2 reasons specify why CCGs, or why card games, as per the title of the video. So 1, mastery, 2, strategy, 3, the multitudinous nature of cards, and 4, drawing/volatility/opponent. Many people have a massive issue with the last 2. I know some people hate the idea that their tournament or game could be decided by RNG, but that's just like a non-factor to me. Further, as you've seen, I actually prefer that nature of the volatility compared to not having it. Question 3. What about mechanics? Do you have a particular preference for something, like LOR's battle system, or spell mana, or unit swinging into units? Earlier you said arbitrary rule set. Arbitrary? This may seem like a pointed question. It is. The original title and premise of this video was going to actually be the claim that I don't think the specific mechanics that discriminate between card games are a deciding factor in whether I will enjoy getting into them or not. This is a claim I think is true, although it's a really particular claim. Mechanics are relevant. They are the arbitrary rule set that makes a card game have anything that it is. The point is something really niche and minor, that what the mechanics are is not a specific relevant factor. I truly believe that given many other qualities, basically all the ones I listed above, would be enough to get deeply invested into a card game and enjoy the main thing that I enjoy about card games, the depth and variability and overthinking and strategy and etc, etc, etc. But I'm not certain about this claim. It's probably the aspect I'm most willing to say cannot be true. It's a claim that's a little hard to say with all your heart when you've only been super deep into 3 card games, all of which have had some level of success in the sense that they've all had multiple sets release, and 2 of which I've heard many people say have the greatest card game mechanics ever. Jans from earlier has made the claim to me that LOR had the best base rule set. I probably have to consider myself lucky that the games I've gotten into are games that people have said great things about the rule set of. If you're willing to stomach a very silly, self-critical food analogy, guy who has only eaten mango and watermelon, all fruit is delicious by virtue of being a fruit, is perhaps one of the silliest sentences you could say, but that's essentially what I'm saying with card games are interesting by virtue of being card games, that the rule set is arbitrary. Hence why of all the claims I'm making in this video, this is the one I think is the weakest, but absent the exactness of the statement, there is, at the very least, something still a little true somewhere near this statement. The mechanics, to me, I think are less important than a myriad of other factors, for the engagement of card games comes from such a different other thing. Whether the specific mechanics are just really low on the list of important things to me, or not at all on the list, there's something there that I felt a need to express. So that's part 1, why card games. In the Clash Royale video, I essentially make a broad claim that Clash is a good card game, and I make this claim, in essence, because it's complex enough and deep enough to have the engaging card game nature. It has a rule set of mana generation, 8-card cycle decks, units on a board in the tile-based auto-battling format that it is. It creates an engaging card game experience. I make statements that Evos and Heroes and Tower Troops are good in part because they add to complexity in interesting ways, and that argument relies on this perspective. It actually probably makes the point in the Clash Royale video less valuable. Most things that they could add to the game can be interesting. Game health is a complicated idea, and I'm not going to claim that every single addition that one could add to a card game increases game health or anything, but the additions in Clash Royale on their card game strategy merits I don't think hurt game health, and in fact add quite new engaging things to the melting pot that is the abstract level thinking and depth. That's really all I was trying to say. Quick tangent that I feel is really important to say and is relevant to the topic, but I don't know where else to put it. I qualified for and played in a lot of LOR tournaments. This is often phrased as being a competitive LOR player, but I don't feel like a competitive player, and I didn't for a long time. I don't really care for, the glory of getting first. I don't care for the status or the prestige or the name. I played tournaments, I took the game seriously because, 1, the competitive environment is where the most deep and curious conversations for all the fun, masterful, abstract elements lives the strongest, and 2, you get to put it into practice at its most important, where these things are being tested the strongest because your opponents will also be the strongest and trying their best too. So you have all these thoughts about tempo, control, mulligan theory, matchups, what cards mean, why you've built the deck that way, all the last months and years of learning and mastering. Do it. Engage in it, revel in it. That's, I believe, what appealed to me about competing. I sort of fell into it circumstantially, having played tournaments initially just because it was offered to me, but why I fell in love with it was because I kept learning and kept engaging and advancing my knowledge while also being myself, right? I played the decks I wanted to while continually learning and engaging in an intimate and cerebral activity. I think the appeal of getting first or doing well to me is to be able to say, on this day, at this time, in this context, I was able to show that I am this knowledgeable and aware of how the game works and able to apply so in the situations I found myself in. Mostly, there's also the satisfaction in seeing your work pay off too. Scrimming for however many hours and getting the fruits of your labor is fun, as any sort of payoff for work is. Part 2 of this video is quite related, but people often talk about the meta as if it exists on its own, so I've kind of done the same here. There has been a single time in the last near decade of playing card games where what the meta was has made me not want to play the game. Once. It saddens me that I say once, because 2 years ago I used to be able to say never, which is a much cooler claim, but once. Even in metas people call the worst of the worst, or metas that encourage boring gameplay patterns, or the current best decks aren't what I enjoyed, I have always enjoyed. The level 1 answer to this is, similarly to what I was saying earlier, the meta is, by virtue of being a meta, generally speaking, enough to engage me. By being a meta, by being another abstract concept we can relate with and engage with, it is interesting, and I enjoy that absent of what it specifically is. Let me give you a story. Ever since LOR sunsetted PvP, there are tons of videos of people of about 20 minutes of length saying why LOR died. Many of these people weren't big LOR players, although some were, and on occasion I end up skimming through them, curious about what the storyline of the game is nowadays. The comments on these videos are so illuminating to me. So many people say, Azir Aurelia killed PvP. Azir Aurelia being unnerfed so long made me quit. Azir Aurelia, and I can't understand this feeling. For context, Azir was a deck that was strong for a good many months, and sort of famously was strong during a time where LOR wasn't patching the game consistently enough. They didn't hit the deck, there was some comment they made about the desert being vast, referencing how one of the champions is from the desert region in Universe, and people hated it. There were many reasons why people said they didn't like it. They would make claims about uninteractivity, sheer strength, some sort of issue about how it fundamentally breaks the game, and I didn't see it. I enjoyed LOR basically the same amount as I enjoyed LOR in every other meta. The meta was always the furthest thing from anything I could be complaining about in a day of LOR. I just played whatever decks I wanted to play during any given time, be they meta, anti-meta, something different entirely. The meta existed in its abstract sense, and by virtue of existing was interesting on an intellectual merit, but it never had any negative associations. Even in the Azir meta, I loved LOR, and I would play through that meta again if I could. I enjoyed it. To me, what the meta is specifically doesn't matter. I will, in essence, find a way to enjoy all the analysis and thinking and playing that occurs when the set of cards is different, due to balancing, banning, introducing, etc., and continue to find a way to do so. This has basically been true for all my time playing card games. This meant for most of my time playing LOR, I never really commented on what the meta is in its relationship to my enjoyment, because there was never anything to comment on. The statement, the meta is not an engaging statement. I like the meta can be, but if it's I like the meta for every meta, then it's functionally meaningless. It also means that, back in the Clash Royale video, my statement of the balancing in Clash Royale is as good as every other game's is both a statement that I think has some meaning, because I do think it's basically as good, but it's also a little meaningless, because what I think of Clash Royale is irrelevant of the meta. The meta is never the thing that would turn me off from Clash Royale. It would have to be something else, of which there could be plenty, but not the meta. Look, I know you want to know. I said there was one instance where I did stop playing a game due to the meta. It was LOR, but it was post-LOR PvP sunsetting, where I only really played LOR for Aegis, which is a set of community-led tournaments, particularly the team tournaments. I'm not going to explain everything that was too strong or unfun to me about Snortikaiser. That can happen at a different time, or if you're really curious, ask me in a comment and I'll respond. Snortikaiser was too big, the effect too boring, and the meta for over half a year was essentially where this guy was the top dog, and I, for the very first time, entered a state where if I found a specific deck on ladder, Snortikaiser, my brain would instantly become disinterested to the point of forfeiting if I found them. I still engaged in the Aegis team tournament for the 2 seasons that Snortikaiser was in, and it was still quite fun. Hell, our team won both. We still engaged and scrimmed and practiced. One of those wins was off the back of me reverse sweeping into a final game against Snortikaiser, which I nearly threw but ultimately won. Despite my utter displeasure for Snortikaiser, that tournament experience was engaging because I was still interacting with all the fun, juicy abstractions and theories and learnings I had built in the last 4 years of LOR and 7 years of card gaming, but it was the first time I didn't enjoy ladder. That was stark. That was a very weird, novel thing for me to feel. These opinions will change. I am not the same person today as I was yesterday or a year ago. I'm sure one day I'll prove to myself that some of the statements I made in this video aren't true. There may be a card game that instead of being able to get invested into no matter what the arbitrary rule set, I decide no, this rule set is unacceptable. I don't know if it'll happen, but it might. People change, I'll gain new experiences, things may happen. But as it currently stands, I believe what I've said in this video to be true. What did you get out of all of this? If you're a CCG fan, I'm sure you've thought about this before, but it's worth asking yourself, and I'd be curious to know, why do you enjoy CCGs? You don't have to give a strategy-based or gameplay-based answer like I did. You're allowed to say, I like the theme of the card game I like. You're allowed to say, this specific deck is the reason I like this CCG. Those are extremely valid. If you're similar to me, I'd be curious to know as well. Maybe you're similar but have a different spin, or maybe I've just hit the nail on the head. Ultimately, I hope this video gave you something to think about with your engagement in CCGs, or maybe your engagement with gaming in general. I did my best to keep this video as short and succinct as possible. Each paragraph here I could probably expand on for an extra 10 minutes each if I wanted to. There are so many things I want to say about card games, but again, I wanted this video to be succinct, not all-encompassing. If you want to talk about this kind of stuff, feel incredibly free to leave a comment. I think this topic is interesting and I'm always willing to chat about it. If you'd prefer to join the Spids YouTube Discord as opposed to leaving a comment because you find Discord to be a better medium, that'll be in the description. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Kinda. I owe one of you an apology. Jans, 3 years ago on an LOR server voice chat, we once were talking. I said something like, I'm not really a card gamer specifically. I like the strategy, the mastery, the getting deep into an arbitrary rule set. Right now, playing LOR with you, that's card games. But before, it was roguelikes, and it could really be anything strategic and deep. It's very similar to what I'm saying here. You said, in response, probably something interesting and correct, as you normally do, but I don't really recall the specifics. What I remember from it was the vibe. And the vibe was, in essence, nah, I think you're a card gamer. And you know what, Jans? I think I can finally admit you're right. Okay, see you later, alligators.